2, 1, and oh, it stopped at 4. Yeah, I don't see yours on there yet, so. Oh, perfect. Hey, this is Tony Diaz. Hey, ¿cómo están? Saludos. All right, we're starting. Woo! I'm Tony Diaz, the Libro Traficante. So nice to join you all on a wonderful Saturday afternoon at MECA, the castle that Alice Valdez built for over 40 years. So let's give her a round of applause. And today's really simple. We're here to make sure that you apply to win $20,000 to recognize your work as an artist and as someone that gives back to the community. And our job is to answer any question you may have and to take those questions and make sure that this process this time around and next year is built to address those needs. And our job too is to make sure that Latinos throughout the 9-county region know how to quantify their work, call themselves artists, and unite and get support. So that's what we're here to do today. I just say a couple things. One, we're gonna do an overview of just the basic facts, and then we can do a little bit in English and Spanish, and then we'll figure out where everyone in the room is, because what the end of this may be where maybe we break up and we're on our computers and helping people sign in individually. Maybe 5 people have the same question and we answer it. It's the same question that people have online. And then, of course, maybe it's just us chatting and getting through it. I do think part of this will be just kind of the uncertainties of, besides the technical stuff, am I an artist? Does this count as community work? Does this letter count as support? And are there any tricks? Are there any tricks? If there's any tricks that you see, let us know, because I want to solve them. Okay, we're on the design committee. And any trick we see here, we want to address, put out, and we don't want to repeat it. And at the end of this, because I will tell you this is the first round of these grants. Next year, there'll be another 25 winners at $20,000 in a year and a half as well. So we want to keep building it on. We're not going to reach the whole Latino community, right? But we want to reach the folks that we can now, but keep building on that. So I do want to introduce the folks who are at the table with us, and it looks like we have our other camera on as well. I'm going to turn this off as well. I'm going to let...
Hub en English o en español, como se les haga más fácil, pero para sacar la aplicación.
También representante, mentora, fundadora del AWA, Latin American Women Artists of Houston, y estamos aquí para responder a sus preguntas en español o en inglés, como sea. Me imagino que son preguntas de computación, pero a lo mejor para empezar podríamos tener preguntas más generales si tienen, que no es así, que tiene que ver con la aplicación misma.
Fantastic. And just so you know how the overview works, so BIPOC Arts Network Fund has been giving funds for 5 years. We're in its 4th year. So one thing I do want to stress is that after those 4 years, the funds are gone. And I say this because for us, the real goal is for us to unite and work together, right? And that's what we're trying to create. The other thing I want to stress too is that the BIPOC Arts Network Fund, they're creating different ways to reach the community. So there was one wave where they supported collectives and nonprofits from the community, and they gave out about $2 million. They won't repeat that the same way again. They came up with these individual artist grants, right? This has not been the case before. This is brand new. There'll be 2 cycles. February 17th, you have to submit your application by then. 25 folks will be picked. Each will win $20,000. And then there's some basic requirements. One of them is a cohort. This is a cohort. It really is. Let's team up. Let's talk. And of course, this is part of the BIPOC movement, which means Black, Indigenous people of color. There's some confusion about that. Really what that means is typically in the past, if you look at the mainstream groups like Houston Arts Alliance, they say, well, here's Latinos, here's African Americans, here's Asian Americans, etc. What we're trying to do is work together, right? And that hasn't been really cultivated before, so that's another thing as well. But we really want to focus on each community as well. So the BIPOC Arts Network Fund, then, they came up with two important committees for these individual grants. One committee is to reach the Latino community profoundly. So that brought together Nuestra Palabra, Latino writers having their say. And here we have Brian Paras, high-tech Aztec, who's also Libre Traficante. Hey, Brian, what's going on? You know, Brian from Texas. Also, Rodrigo Bravo, who's working the camera. You never see him because he's behind the camera. And then and then, of course, every movement is run by women. So where's Liana Lopez? Of course, she's doing hard work. That's why they always, where's Liana? And then, of course, the director of BIPOC Arts Network Fund is Sixto Wagan. Por favor, Sixto. And it's his vision that's been cultivating these groupings. Of course, the other partner for the Latino Convention is MECA, of course, founded by Alice Valdez, and we have her team here. We're in her castle. We want you to know, too, that we're going to have flyers here, and this will be our unofficial base. If other folks have questions throughout the campaign, this is the place to do that, to meet. Technically, we won't have any formal meetings like this again, but that doesn't mean we can't convene and talk, right? But again, we want to thank MECA for providing that. And then our other partner, too, is LAWA, Latin American Women of Houston, Association of Houston, también. And the other thing I want to mention, those groups are intended to reach different facets of the Latino community. I will say a little bit more about the overview and let our colleagues say a little bit something about how they interpret the overview. But the other thing I want to add, too, this in no way is going to reach the whole Latino community, right? We know that. And let's put numbers on that. The Latino community in Houston is quantified by the census at around 45%. So that's an undercount. Okay, I don't have time to get into that. But even if we accept 45%, that's 900,000 Latinos. Okay? There's no way we can reach them. Now, we're trying to spread the word as much as possible. And between our three groups, we reach a big audience. And right now, it's how do we build a system that we can keep working on this year and in a year and a half to reach more folks? How do we also cater to the folks that we can reach now? Because personally, I want to make sure all of you apply. If you don't apply, it's porque no les dio gana. You know, you're like, I've got too much money. Like, I'm just not going to apply. Surely I'll win. So I'll let everyone else have the funding. That's different. But I also know, and having from work with folks, I'm going to speak for myself, this is editorializing. I've worked with wonderful people that work behind the cameras, that work behind the cameras, and sometimes they don't think they're artists. ¿Verdad? ¿Verdad? Sometimes they're too busy giving their time and energy behind the camera, setting up chairs. Ustedes, todos ustedes lo han hecho. I know you're doing a whole building. You've all done that. Where it takes away time and energy. This is designed to not just recognize it, to quantify it, so that it's recognized. And off the charts and off the records, what I hope is that other organizations will see what we're doing y tomar eso en cuenta from now on and fund it from now on, right? And then the other thing too is we've got to help the artists that exist now to create this big base so that as we keep building, we're working together more. And that is one goal. For sure, we have a lot of dreams, but specifically, soon in a few months, 25 of us will be getting this recognition. And it's not just about the funding, it's that recognition and spreading the word and building on it. So we're still kind of doing a little bit of the overview. And then I think Ariel was very smart to say we want to get some questions back from folks. But I think we said the who, the what, the when, the where, the why. I don't know if you want to add anything about the overview and kind of what you see as some of the goals.
No, just to mention that, just to echo what Tony said, even though we're Latinos, we are from different points of view, visual artists, writers, we have performance artists, to try to reach as many people as possible and to look at it in the bigger picture kind of way. So please do share this with everybody that you know so we can reach more people. Thank you.
And I just want to say that this grant has been split in 2 years. So we're giving a grant for 25 artists this year, and then 25 other artists next year. So for me, this is, I take this as a training ground for you to apply, for you to look at how to apply, and really getting yourself ready, because maybe you're not ready for this year, but you will be ready for next year. So everything that you're doing here, you're doing it for you, for this year or next year, and you're also doing it for your community, because once you are trained, once you know what is going on, then you can reach other people that you know in your community. And I think that I know actually that there are communities and theaters and groups that have been here in Houston doing a lot of work for many, many years, and they're sort of in their little circuit, they're getting their little money the way they have always been doing, and they're not thinking about reaching out. So like Tony said, this is the opportunity. Maybe, this kind of money will not be flowing in this manner from this foundation anymore. So let's get the word out, and let's get, to answer all your questions, and let's get it done.
Great. A few more basics. So for folks who missed this and are watching online, we will, who are not here in person, we will take a look at the comments and answer some of the comments online. Secondly, this information will be at the BIPOC Arts Network Fund website. It will be archived there. We have a whole presentation that was all in Spanish. That's already archived on the BIPOC Arts Network Fund. This will also air on 90.1 FM KPFT. So we have a radio show on that station, and it airs every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. We'll air that on free radio so that someone driving down I-59 de repente va escuchando esto por la primera vez, maybe. We air the Spanish version of what went on already. We'll air today's proceedings as well. And then, of course, we also have a podcast for Nuestra Palabra, so we'll also download it. And the reason I bring it up then, too, is if you want to send us an email, we can make that very easy for you to text that information to others or to remind yourself or to go over that once again. And then, I guess, again, the deadline is February 17th. You can actually apply all in Spanish if you like. And then you will need 2 letters of support. One thing I will say, I have so many friends in the room. I should have brought a little wine and cheese, maybe. And right, I thought vino chileno, right? Some carbonara. I will say a couple things too. So we're on the committee to design this, so we cannot write any letters of support. It breaks my heart. Right? No, it breaks my heart. But I think the other thing that's happening, this is also a good way, like you kind of said, we kind of have to break out of our comfort zones and start working with other folks and empower other community members. I received a question by text. Someone said, well, can other artists write a letter of support even if they're applying? Yes, they can. So we can write letters of support for each other. And then the other thing I want to add too is I think we may be imagining that as only directors of a nonprofit, right? It could be parents of something that we've created.
It could be anyone that has been empowered by what you've done. So I think that is also very valid. Somebody said, I participated in this festival or this group or whatever, and my life changed. Somebody that give this type of testimony, with precision, that could be also valid. You don't have to go to, to the head of the organization that you did and that will be there to assess what you've done. Other people can assess what you have done too.
And I'll say a little bit more about community work, and then maybe you had mentioned if we took a few questions to kind of see where everyone was in the room,
Right.
maybe we take like 7 questions, line them up and say, okay, here's a few we can answer right away, and then here's some that we need to do one-on-one. So one thing I want to say about community work, for example, so sometimes people imagine community work as what we as Libre Traficantes did, which is get on a bus, drive to Arizona, protest legislators in Arizona. You don't have to do that, okay? Community work is that you've created plays. That means you've given young people a chance to direct, to read scripts. I know you've put concerts together, right? You've given someone a chance to learn lighting. That's community work, because otherwise no one teaches them that. That's like a school. The community work, Ronnie has a building. That's community work. Teaching someone to manage. The key part is that it's time that you're not dedicating to your art. And you said, I'm not going to dedicate it to my art this time. I'm going to help teach Latinas how to write their mission statement. I'm going to help, right, young Latina visual artists create their resumes, do their prints. That all counts as community work. And I think for the long term, it's great that you start to quantify it, because later on, I'm sure in 5 years, we'll be getting to grants and say, you're not counting, don't just count the money we've made. Look at this long list of all this community work, quantify that. And then that'll become something that even the mainstream recognizes. But what do you think, Arbil? You mentioned we should pause and maybe see where people are in the room.
Absolutely.
And
I get some questions. I don't know how this works.
well, we have a microphone. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, while we are doing this and organizing the logistics here, maybe think of your work in a different light. Maybe if you're a visual artist, like we were talking to some of the people here, and you think, oh, I'm just a visual artist. Well, yeah, but you also hold the space for everybody, for someone else, or you mentor someone else, or that just keep thinking and reflecting in what you have done, that you might not think of it as community work, but it actually is. So while we do this, maybe you can reflect back on your own path.
So you can give us your name, maybe your art form, and then a questions. Let's take some questions.
Hello. Pablo Delega, do surprise session. 2 questions. One is I need to review my application because I have video and I have posters that I've done for the same kind of questions. So it's not the application is not able to do that or video or playback or something. So that's something I'm kind of confused. And what is confusing is the questions. Some questions are not translated. So if I apply in Spanish, I'm answering a question that is in English. So it's kind of confusing.
Great questions. Thank you, Pablo. So the second question is, hey, some of the questions in English are not translated into Spanish. And then the other question is there a preference for video or images? Sixto, do you want to? Well, let's mic him up. No? Yes. Thank you.
So on the second question, I know that images and info, things are translated, but that's why we have the worksheet that's in Spanish. And hopefully that you can understand that the headings are all there. If we put everything in both Spanish and English, it became really long and it's really confusing. So I think part of the thing was looking at the worksheet and making sure that you have both it online and offline and know where it can be submitted. In terms of work cycle, you can only choose images or video or PDF. That's partly because of the online platform, so we apologize for that. If you have multiple things, you can take a video of your of the images, of the posters, and add that into those aspects, and then you can actually make that part of the work. Try to just be as creative as you can in order to present the work in the way that makes sense. We're also making sure that as long as we can read the work, as long as we can understand it and we can see it, it should be as good of a quality as we can get. but it doesn't have to be perfect.
Okay.
That's not the part where, like, really what we're looking at, do we actually understand, do we see what they're actually doing? Does it make sense, does it translate into that aspect? And, because it's not just about like, who does the best work, it is like, do you actually do the work? Can we see that? Can our readers make that part make sense?
Yes, thank you. Because maybe I uploaded a video where that shows my work, but shows the community, but it's not exactly.
Absolutely, and that's part of the thing where we know, particularly when it's community work, it might be it's off the phone, or it's a bad audio, but if the people who are watching it can get a sense of what it is, that's that's much more important to us than all of that.
Great. Actually, we should get a chair for you up here, Sixto, if you want to come up here. And just to summarize, so then submittable, we couldn't translate all the material into Spanish, but there's a worksheet. Does that help? There's a worksheet. We want to make sure. Not at all. No. Let's make sure it's easy. We'll make sure it's easy for you to get to the worksheet. So I think the learning for us is that we got to make the worksheet easier to get. So we'll make sure that that's the case for one. And let's follow up on that part. And then two, you mentioned too, the limitations of submittable. You may have to pick the video or the JPEGs, and you're both chatting, and I think we didn't catch it on mic, but I want to repeat it. You could then shoot a video where you grab some of the images, but the real overall lesson is show the community at work, show your work in the community so that the people watching are like, oh yeah, that's legit. And just so you know, it'll be community members reviewing, right? So it's not going to be corporate executives who don't know our community look at it saying, I don't know what this is. It'll be us saying, oh yeah, that's,
A ver, en español.
Por ahí el video no representa, el video que subí es muy específico esta pregunta. Por ahí el video que subí no representa exactamente la pregunta, pero sí muestra la comunidad y el trabajo hecho. Porque hay dos preguntas, ¿no? Que quieren el trabajo hecho. Desde pósters que subí y desde este video que era muy importante.
Pero también a lo mejor lo que estamos diciendo es que lo que está en vídeo lo dejas en vídeo y tu trabajo, los afiches y todo, entonces haces tú un pequeño vídeo de eso, si puedes hacer un pequeño montaje. Entonces todo va como vídeo. Porque eso es lo que pasa, parece ser. Un pequeño documental o varios.
Also, your letters of support, those should speak about the community impact. Your work samples might not be able to show all of the community impact, but those letters are the place where you need to make sure that that they're talking about what that is, like where that's at.
brother, we're with you, bro. The system's done it to all of us, man.
Y en relación a la worksheet, si vas a houstonbanf.org y ahí da clic en Artist Awards, en la worksheet está al final. Ahí la vas a ver, hay dos, está en inglés y en español.
But the good thing is, after this, we'll show you exactly where it's at, and we'll remind folks, we'll tweet it and post it.
And the other thing, the application, all your work samples, your narrative, the support system, that is your story. That is what we are interested in.
Yeah. The other thing I want to add, I want to say one quick thing too. We devised the application, but the real goal is exactly what you said, is say, hey, let me show the community at work. But we know that other systems, they would nos critican, say, well, this is not high-level video, this is not great angles. No, for us, it's like, we try to come up with a structure where you can show off what's in the community. And when we see it, it's more like, we're that professor that's like, oh, that was a guy. We don't care what the guideline is. That's an A-level. That's awesome. That's the art. So, good point. I think there were other hands. Yes.
Yo tengo siempre porque se refiere a las imágenes, ¿no? En el caso nuestro de artista estamos trabajando con la comunidad, o solo imágenes de nuestro trabajo. Y si son imágenes de nuestro trabajo, sería nuestro trabajo más reciente o una compilación de los trabajos que hemos hecho, en mi caso, durante los últimos 20 años. O sea, ¿qué tipo de imágenes serían las idóneas, las que están buscando?
No, these are questions from someone that's applied to a few places, right? So the question is, as a visual artist, when I demonstrate my images for my work, do they need to be images of me interacting with community? Should they be images of my highest art form that I think they are? Or is there another criteria I don't imagine?
Tell your best story. What are you most proud of and what are you excited about? And then put forward what you are excited about. And so that we, as the reviewers and the readers and all of that, see what your work is. And know that your work samples, your narrative, and the support statements, all of them need to come together in order to demonstrate all that work. So part of the thing for us is not about judging all the work samples. It is asking you to tell us what is important to you, what resonates with you. And that's actually part of what we're speaking back to other foundations, other organizations. This is what's valuable. This is what our communities are saying is important and necessary. If you don't understand and if you don't see this, let me help educate you as to why that's important. So show us your work in the way that you think that you can be most proud. It doesn't have to be perfect, but really the whole story here, the whole process, if you should be able to see yourself in that story, in that narrative, and in this process, and be happy with what you've actually presented to us, and say that that's actually the real me.
Okay. I want to add that lo voy a decir en español, lo mejor, a veces los artistas no somos los mejores jueces de nuestro trabajo y pensamos que una pieza o algo que hemos trabajado mucho es lo mejor. En este caso, yo iría con una pregunta detrás de la cabeza que es, este trabajo que es tan bueno, ¿cómo ha impactado la comunidad, una comunidad X? Si he hecho un trabajo como diseñador de una estación de metro, he impactado a la gente que ha tomado el metro. No, a lo mejor no es el mejor dibujito que yo pienso que yo he hecho, porque ese dibujo se quedó en mi estudio y nadie lo vio, no impacté la comunidad. Entonces yo creo que esa es la historia de la que están tratando de ver cómo ustedes se ven en el contexto de impactar a las comunidades que los rodean o en donde trabajan. Tatiana.
Una pregunta específica. Por ejemplo, ¿un mural se considera por qué la comunidad así sea pagado, contratado?
Sí, claro.
Y, por ejemplo, este tipo de trabajo tiene que haber sido hecho dentro de la ciudad de Houston.
Oh, that's a good question. So you're saying if you painted a work, a mural, but it was commissioned, does that count as your work? Yes, it does. And then the other question you were asking, does that mural have to, so if you're eligible because you live here, but that mural's in New York, would it count?
Sure.
Um,
But what we're looking at is you can submit that as a work sample, but it's about your work here in Houston, about how you impact communities here in Houston. And that's actually becoming, so it might not just be that mural. Yeah, I mean,
Greater Houston.
the greater Houston area. So we appreciate everybody who does work outside, but because this is supporting Houston, it's supporting our communities, it's supporting all of this. That's why we're highlighting and supporting and featuring those artists who actually have commitments to this city, to these communities.
So the images of the album, there are different paintings or illustrations on their different.
If you want to speak Spanish, please go ahead, Spanish. I'll just try to, like,
Repite lo que dijiste, no se entiende.
Si las imágenes que envío, o sea, envío un trabajo en el mural que sea trabajando hacia la comunidad, pero las otras imágenes de mi obra, no hay unas que no las ves como al mural, porque puedes ser artistas multidisciplinarios. Yo puedo trabajo ilustración para niños, trabajo poemas, hago murales y hago otras pinturas abstractas.
Poneslo todo. Ahora, las pinturas abstractas que se quedan en tu estudio, pues no están impactando a la comunidad.
Pero al salir por social media.
Claro. También impactar la comunidad sería impactar una comunidad BIPOC. No solo sería, pues yo tengo exposiciones o... Entonces...
Y también puede ser también que, por ejemplo, porque también otra manera de interpretar eso será, por ejemplo, si tus obras, bueno, yo como escritor, si yo quiero, voy a escribir algo que no tiene nada que ver con latinos a lo mejor, gente en Marte, ¿verdad? Pero mis otro trabajo, the letter of support, ¿verdad? The other hechos, enseñan que sí estoy involucrado en la comunidad. Eso sí va a ser una imagen, una historia completa de tu trabajo en la comunidad. No es para dictar exactamente lo que artistas latinos pueden o no pueden hacer.
Un poco de todo, porque queremos saber toda la historia y todo tu recorrido personal.
So this is a good question. The question for visual artists would be, can I present my artwork, and let's suppose it has nothing to do with the mural I mentioned? Yes, you can. But I think the key would be, yes, and can you present your piece of art that exhibited in somewhere in New York that has nothing to do with Houston? Yes, you can. But we also want to recognize community work in Houston. So then you could do that with your letters of support, your narratives as well. So there's no one way to do this, right? But I also love that this is a unique way for Houston Latino artists to start imagining their work. And we'll take this one, because here's my problem. My problem is there's a mainstream world that doesn't think of us as artists, or worse, they're like, oh, you're a Chicano writer. Here's the 3 things you can write about. They're like, yeah, that's not going to work. So we are now then, with this body of submissions, redefining what that means. So this is a great question. You got several answers. I look forward to your answer. I say put your best art there as well, and then some of the community support. ¿Tiene sentido eso? That works.
Es que piensa como tu historia. Tu historia no es lineal. Tu historia...
No, yeah, you have to be an artist, prove that, and you have to work in the community, prove that, right? I mean that's the basic decision. Now, and I don't want to cut you short. After this, we can take a look at your submission and give you ideas afterwards. But we do want to get to other questions. I saw some other hands. I'm gonna let you call people so they don't get mad at me. This one?
Just repeat the question after the audience.
Why don't you call someone out of y'all?
Who got it here in front?
You can just say that.
Just say it.
And we'll repeat it. Okay.
Bueno, yo me presento, mi nombre es Antonio Marzú. Soy el presidente y fundador de una compañía de teatro que se llama Teatro Febrero. Esta es la tercera compañía de teatro que producimos. Y yo quisiera hacer una introducción aquí, si me permiten. Yo espero que este sea el día que estaba esperando mucho tiempo que llegara, que sea un turning point para los artistas, que llevamos más de 30 años siendo el circo pobre, haciendo todo de nuestro bolsillo, abuso, y como conversábamos por ahí, siempre lo deseo de algún día vivir de esto, pero es imposible. Entonces, esta cosa yo realmente estoy súper emocionado, jamás pensé que este día iba a llegar, espero que sea así como es.
Let's applaud that. I'm hoping.
que modelaste ahí hace un par de años, me atreví a pararme y decir que ya era hora de cambiar los parámetros, de entender que el artista latino ya no es ni el chicano americano ni es la música latinoamericana. O sea, en los últimos 10, 15 años, el espectro de los artistas en Houston ha cambiado radicalmente. Y aquí tenemos una primera presentación de ellos. Entonces, también, todos también a pulso, chicos, pequeños. Entonces, es bueno saber que esta plata está, muchas plata ya no van a ir a los grandes teatros que reciben millones y millones para hacer una producción mundial, que con una colita de eso nosotros quedamos todos contentos y este grupo porque esperamos tres. Entonces, es rico ver eso que es lo que esté pasando. También tú hablas de que tenemos que salir de la zona de confort. Yo diría de la zona de decepción, porque de confort no estamos, porque todavía seguimos en nuestro curso, pero estamos totalmente decepcionados lo que hemos tratado de aplicar para el grant 4, 5, 6 años, en que por una coma mal puesta, por una pregunta que no se entendió, que nunca hubo acceso a que estuviera ahí, con que todo era tan riguroso que tenía que ser de tal forma. Entonces, quieren ganar todos los grants, los que tenían profesionales, quieren que se dediquen a saber cómo llevar grants para las grandes empresas, los grandes teatros. Así que ahora les doy acuerdo. Bueno, entonces, ahora la pregunta que yo quiero decir. La única forma de nosotros contribuir este auspicio era haciendo non-profit, después de haber pasado por varios abogados que nos quitaron todo lo que teníamos y las cosas no resultó. De pronto se canceló nuestro non-profit por razón que la KPS todavía no responde el llamado, no, es decir, se canceló y quedamos en este limbo. Mi pregunta es, nosotros cuando apliquemos al grant, ¿qué conviene? ¿Aplicar como un grupo de teatro non-profit que no tiene su actual estatus, ¿sabe qué? A ver si aquí ya sabemos, excepto que le paguemos a otro abogado para que sepa que... O aplicar como yo, Antonio, soy una persona particular con un proyecto detrás. Esa es mi pregunta, ¿cómo convendría hacer esa aplicación? Y lo otro es si hay un futuro contacto, como tú decías, para de aquí al 17, llamar a alguien y decir, hey, con este problema, esta duda, vas a hablar de esta noche. Nuevamente, gracias por la presentación.
Yeah, no, thank you. Teatro, good job. Mira, en este caso, estas becas son para individuales. So this is individual. This is by yourself. Voy a decir otra cosa, pero BANF está reconociendo el trabajo de collectives, que son grupos sin fines, without 501c3 profit también, and then non-profits. Entonces, está BANF cultivando una manera de que podemos trabajar juntos para sobrepasar esas barreras. So that's a good question. But this time it's individuals. I do want to repeat your statement for the microphone in that you were saying that you're hoping that this is the turning point that you've been looking forward to for 30 years, where our community can be recognized as full-fledged artists, maybe make a living at it perhaps someday, because in the past there's been a system that keeps funneling money towards larger groups year after year after year without supporting our community. Perhaps this is the turning point. And I would say, just for my own good, I'm with you. I think it's here. It's not going to happen overnight, but let's applaud. I think it's here. And I think it's all these steps coming together, building on it. The key part will be too, I think in the past, our discussions evaporated. They won't evaporate this time. They're going to be cogent, and we'll build on it for next year and year after that and the year after that. And then I think the other question was about not 501c3s. In this case, it's for individual artists.
Aplicar como asociación en realidad eran las becas del año pasado. Entonces, este año las becas son para artistas individuales. Pero para los grupos de teatro, claro, muchas veces los actores, los artistas son los que organizan.
Right.
Entonces, en esta vez tú vas a aplicar como persona, como nombre, vas a decir lo que haces como artista y todo lo que has hecho como director, el que propone, sí, organizador, de grupo y con toda la lista que has estado haciendo durante aquí en Houston.
Muchas gracias.
Another question.
Y bueno, lo primero que quiero agradecer es porque yo no me he considerado artista hasta que entré aquí y hoy que me dijeron que si usted produjo y hizo organización detrás de las cámaras y detrás del escenario, usted también es artista y entonces me siento muy bien por eso.
Awesome.
Por mucho tiempo y ha sido muy intenso y muy gratificante trabajar con artistas y bueno, eso también hace parte de la historia de uno, ¿no? Pero también he sido líder comunitaria durante unos cuantos años, porque también, como les digo aquí, he sido directora de una organización sin fines de lucro y yo me pregunto dos cosas. La primera, para demostrar mi trabajo como productor artístico, estaría bien poner dentro de mi historia programas de mano, digamos. Además de escribirlo, pues tomar fotos de eso y ponerle las imágenes para describir que eso efectivamente sucedió. Además, por supuesto, de todo lo que como líder comunitario. Que eso funciona, esa es la primera. La segunda es que me interesa saber si el proyecto tiene que ser un proyecto que viene andando o puede ser un proyecto que está dentro de los objetivos que quiero particularmente lograr o líder comunitario también. Porque, bueno, hay gente que está trabajando con cosas que ya han venido durante un cierto tiempo y necesitan fondos para que eso siga prosperando, pero también hay ideas nuevas que se pueden implementar dentro del área de community leader para comunidad VIVO. Entonces, quiero ver si eso.
The question that she's asking is if two things. One, if she can include in her application things like programs that she's created and visual things that even though she's describing in her application, she can also put the image of that program or whatever handout that she gives out. And the other question is that, ¿cuál fue la otra pregunta?
Si son proyectos que tienen
Claro.
todo el tiempo andando, o podría ser nuevos también.
And the other question is if she should include past projects, current projects, or future projects. Okay, en relación a la primera pregunta, creo que hay que pensarlo como decía Sixto, pensando en tu historia y tú diciendo, ¿qué cuenta mi historia? Si tu historia la cuentan los programas que has creado, cuenta la historia de esa manera. Y la otra pregunta de los proyectos, recuerda que esta beca no es en base a un proyecto. Muchas veces las becas son project-based, ese es el término. Esta no es así. Esta no tienes que presentar tu proyecto al final, el reporte, no. Entonces, tú, si un proyecto que vienes trabajando, pensando, suma a tu historia, inclúyelo, pero no creas que está limitado a solamente a que tienes que entregar un proyecto. Okay, so I was telling her, okay.
Additionally, part of why we are asking artists not to think of themselves only as the outcomes and the projects. You are artists. Your work, your engagement with communities, your engagement with audiences, that is all of the work. Thinking of yourself only as a painting, as a project, is limiting and is something that other ways of funding have conditioned us to believe that that's the only thing that's important to us. This is an opportunity for us to hear from you all what that reality is and what does it mean for you to be an artist. And it is an opportunity for us to advocate for you on your behalf after hearing all this data, seeing all these stories, and say, this is what Houston can provide.
Chica, atrás.
Sí, yo solo quería agregar, ¿verdad? Veo que el departamento de básicamente esta beca es para el ser humano que está detrás de las, más que todo. No, ustedes no son críticos del trabajo ni de la producción como artista, sino del ser humano que crea y que plasma esos colores, ¿no? Que salen del alma, ¿verdad? Vale, es lo que quería añadir y confirmar que eso es lo que están ustedes financiando máximo, si pudiera decirlo de una manera, a través de la beca.
Sí, yo quiero contestar a esa pregunta. Sí estamos mirando a la persona, no solamente a los proyectos que ha hecho, porque estamos también parte de la beca es participar durante 18 meses a un grupo, lo llamo de aprendizaje mutuo, en donde se va a crear una comunidad donde ustedes, todos nosotros, vamos a intercambiando de cómo hemos aportado e impactado a nuestra comunidad. Entonces, realmente estamos mirando a las personas, a sus proyectos, pero a las personas para ver cómo ellos se van a desenvolver en ese learning cohort. Sí, me explico.
Aquí.
Soy Miguel Silva y soy cinematógrafo, tengo 16 años de cine. Entonces, quiero el comentario de que pongamos un video como parte de nuestras pruebas. A mí me parece muy bueno, como cinematógrafo para mí sería muy fácil. Tan fácil es que yo podría hacer un documental de 2 horas acerca de mi trabajo y mandarlo, ¿no? Entonces, la pregunta es, ¿cuál sería la duración adecuada para poder poner la mayor cantidad de información posible, pero que ustedes al final vean el video y no lo corten a la hora y media?
He's a cinematographer, so he can make a 2-hour-long video of himself. He said has got no problem with that. So how long? I think maybe it's in the guidelines.
5 minutes of video.
5 minutes.
Y en cada pregunta va diciendo la duración máxima, entonces,
Sí.
ajá.
Si van leyendo, hay una.
Poco la nubes, libertad, mi pregunta es, como artistas que no tenemos los recursos económicos o tener esos contactos para hacer en mi caso específico me dedico a muchas cosas, escribir, actriz, a fotógrafa, entonces hablar de mí es hablar de un abanico de cosas, de posibilidades. Esta ayuda, si uno califica y la recibe, es bueno económicamente, pero en el caso de que nosotros personalmente tengamos una serie de proyectos que serían para el beneficio de la comunidad, aparte del proyecto que tengan aquí, también se puede dar como de comunicación, porque muchas de las personas no las vamos a hacer porque no tenemos ese patrocinio o no sabemos contactar a las organizaciones.
She wants to know if she does a lot of different disciplines, and she wants to know if here we can be funding projects in the future. And so, la respuesta es no. Este programa de este año y el año que viene solo son becas individuales para artistas individuales, sin mirar exactamente qué proyecto están desenvolviendo. Es como decimos, estamos mirando a la persona. Entonces, ese dinero se puede usar para lo que quieran. Nosotros no estamos mirando para qué lo van a usar.
Pero solo motivar al artista para que...
Es para motivar al artista, motivar a que el artista entienda su papel y su perfil dentro de la comunidad y después formar una comunidad en el futuro.
Y si puedo agregar algo a esa respuesta, exactamente, no está atada a un proyecto, pero también ese es el punto de la comunidad de aprendizaje, de Learning Cohort, porque al tú estar conviviendo con otros artistas, se trata de crear un efecto dominó que vaya a hacerte explotar todas esas cosas que tú quieres hacer. O sea, al tener la colaboración con los otros artistas por 18 meses.
Y tenerlos y crear y construir los contactos que dices que te faltan. Porque aquí hay todas esas personas reunidas, tienen a lo mejor cosas que tú necesitas y que tú no sabías que tu propia comunidad tenía.
Hola, yo soy María Bravo, cantante. Mi trabajo básicamente se ha enfocado en destacar el papel de la mujer latina dentro de la música, específicamente los boleros, que es para mí lo que cuenta la historia romántica de América Latina. Y he hecho conciertos que en realidad son conciertos que son educativos, porque durante el concierto no solamente voy cantando, sino voy hablando de datos históricos que me hacen ver cómo estas mujeres que me precedieron fueron tan importantes y fueron tan fabulosas que yo pienso que la gente tiene que conocer, la tiene que recordar, y tenemos que seguir un poco su ejemplo en ese sentido. Entonces, pero bueno, no solamente he hecho eso, yo también he hecho programas de Navidad que tienen que ver con mi país, que es Venezuela, hablando de lo rico que es la música navideña venezolana, por ejemplo. Y enterando a la gente de qué se trata, ¿no? Tratando de sentir, además de sentirme orgulloso de donde vengo, porque creo que todos nos tenemos que sentir orgullosos de donde venimos. Y me encanta que el grupo de gente que está aquí sea tan diversa, porque aprendo absolutamente de todo. Entonces, en el momento de poder meter esa aplicación, yo siempre he estado pensando en el tema de que el impacto en la comunidad realmente tiene que ver con que las mujeres, las niñas, las adolescentes, se sientan absolutamente motivadas por el papel que hicieron las mujeres antes. Entonces, estoy un poquito confundida, porque se tiene que ver a la persona más allá del proyecto, porque el proyecto tiene que ver con eso, es la pasión por dar a conocer lo importante que somos como comunidad, ¿verdad? En el tema femenino y cómo nosotros realmente podemos ser poderosas expresándonos a través de la música y de lo que sea. Entonces, enfoco eso más que todo en el sentido que estoy diciendo.
En inglés se llama role model. If you think you are a role model, es decir, que tú a través de tu música y cómo la presentas, tienes segmentos en donde estás hablando más allá de tu música y estás empoderando a las mujeres. Eso, you are a role model. Entonces, en tu aplicación deberías decir, yo soy música, yo soy cantante, música venezolana, pero deberías de tener una gran porción sobre ese rol de mentorship.
Para mí es súper importante porque en este caso se trata de mujeres que vienen de México, de República Dominicana, de Cuba, de Puerto Rico. Incluso hay una americana que está dentro de todas las mujeres que yo abrazo en ese concierto. Chévere saber eso.
Right. Let me repeat the question for our podcast. So the question was, you're explaining how you're in music and the genres of music you work with tell a story, historical, also instill pride. And one thing that's important for you is that you teach young women to have a presence on stage and to express themselves. And your question is, well, how do I take all that and reduce it to your little application? And I think that's one of the things that we designed the application that way, like you were saying, is that this is key because you are cultivating community cultural capital. And let's just add a few. You're teaching young Latinas to have to public speaking. That's like a corporate talent, you know. It's ethnic studies. Why? Because you hear about a certain history, and then there's a whole musical tradition. So you should, in your application, you should break that down. And your letters of support could be one young lady who says that.
To be proud of your community. I think that's kind of a missing element in all education, where how do you instill and how do you convey to be proud of where you come from and of your culture. And if you're passionate about that, this passion should come through this application.
And to add to that, that's a great point. Our young are not getting that in school. And in fact, right now, I'm going to editorialize. This is just me, Tony Diaz, the Libre Traficante, saying this. There are actual movements at a policy level removing any of that from classrooms. So that what you're talking about is even more vital because what you explained, our youth are not getting in school, so they have to get it from the community, like you.
Produce more the show and put more elements that could be more willing to entertain, learning and entertaining at the same time. You're going to a concert learning something, but you realize that when everything finished, and that's what happened when I did sponsor the 2021 at the match station, and I mean I have more ideas. And I'm so proud.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
But part of this is actually what we're asking you all to do. It's not just about the artwork. It's not just about the song. It's about you understanding what your role is with audiences, with young women, with audience, and what your role is in music in order to uphold a song or a set of like music that other people don't hear. That is actually the work. Your work is not creating just a production. It's not creating a performance. Your work is actually doing all these things together. And this is our opportunity. We're asking you to think through all of those things and present that on the application. And our hope is that even if you, we're only awarding 25. So that's one of the things that even if we only award 25, by doing that process, you also know and you see yourself and you have other supporters see your work as more than just an event. And now you can actually start saying, this is what I do. This is really what we are here for. And this is how all of us show up for our community. And that's what we're asking you to do.
That's amazing. I think this work is for many others, not only going to communities, but also going to their colleges. I'm thinking about me doing this in universities and college and high school and everywhere. Talking about this.
And that's the part why we're not focusing on the future projects. We want you to claim where you are now and whatever possibilities of this money or the connections, that's up to you. That's what the network is. But those possibilities should not be defined. The whole option is that we should have more options for you instead of saying all your thing is I have to get an MFA or I have to get these things or I have to do, those are the only things of success. No, that's not what this is about.
With this exchange that just happened, I want to make a note for all of the artists here that this is what thinking of your work differently means. It's not an artwork, a painting, or a song. It's how you think of your work. So that's why it's important to think of the work in context.
Thank you so much.
I don't know if you talk about before I arrived about this, but my question is, you are going to receive different information, different artists apply with applications. But what is the profile that you are looking for? Is it people who really wanting to do something, or is it according to the resume of the person? I don't know. What is the objective for you? What is your objective?
There is no exact profile. Part of the thing that we've developed all of these in this process is to understand who are the artists and who are doing the work here. We also recognize that the 25 artists that we're going to award should represent some of the diversity in Houston. So it should look, and that means discipline, that means generation, that could mean, and that means gender, that means cultural history, and we don't know what that means. Because actually, this is one of the things why we're doing things differently. Because most foundations or most organizations, they have an idea of who's going to win. They have an idea of what they want. We have an idea of what makes sense. We have an idea of what we understand because we've seen. But we hope to be surprised. We hope you all tell us that what we know is not the only thing that's out there. If we know already everything that's happening, we failed because you all haven't applied, and and really Tony does not need to think that he's more of a god than he is. He already got that.
We'll edit that out.
But I mean, but part of the thing for us is, even though part of the thing, we have multiple rounds in order to understand who's in our community, what is this opportunity. And even though we're only going to name 25, we have a database of all these applications, of all these artists in different places. And so when HAA or Houston First comes and says that we don't have enough like Latino artists, when we don't have enough Asian artists, I'm like, well, this 1,000 artists all in this greater Houston area actually tells you that your data is not compared to our data. You can believe whatever you want to believe, but we are actually going to continue to promote the people here. And it is actually that story that we are interested in conveying. So it's not just about the 25 applications. It's not about the 25 who award. It is each and every one of your stories adding to a community for us to be able to say, this is what Houston looks like. This is what, and when we talk about Houston diversity, this is what a diverse Houston looks like through our culture, through their songs, through the music, through the individuals, through the theater, through all of these types of things, and an opportunity in order for us to say, we will not be the solution. The BIPOC Culture Network and Fund is not the only solution. We do not claim to be the only solution. We hope that with this data, we actually can help other people and actually see, and then help solve for some of these other gaps.
Somebody asked online if we could, if they're not selected this year, can they apply for next year? Yes, which is to your point that it keeps building on. I think you've raised your hand several times.
Yes, so in terms of the application, I know there's intended to be 2 rounds of awards. And there's obviously a lot of artists and community members that have been at the forefront of like the Latino and people, other artists of color in Houston. And my question is like, I know that you have to demonstrate commitment to your practice as well as serving communities of color. But for this first round, what will be the emphasis on the longevity of your commitment to Houston? Like someone who moved here.
They have to be here 2 years minimum. From that, it's going to be a part of the question as to how you all present your stories and then all the work. We have community readers who are going to be doing all this work so that your work will be read by not just the people who are behind this table, but other people who are doing work in the community. And so acknowledging that there might be other opportunities that they might be able to. In terms of longevity, we don't know. We don't know the answer to that, but it is going to be part of the question because we know we have had already those conversations around here are the legends in our community. We have more than 25 legends in the community. We have more than 25 up and coming. We have more than 25 in all this. Part of our question is that how do we build a learning community at the end that actually can bring people together, that can learn from each other and with each other, so that each and every one of them and their networks can then be able to, that they can take something from this learning community and help activate their networks, help share that information. And that is actually an important part of who actually will be selected. You can do all your work, awesome. But if you don't actually help advocate for other people, you're not necessarily the best fit for us right now. We need you to be able to learn and be able to take an opportunity to educate and understand what these opportunities are. And so that's why we don't have a perfect person. We don't have a perfect idea because we're going to continue to read and we're going to continue to be like, Tony's going to have a different idea. Ariel's going to have a different idea. Gabi's going to have a different idea. And it is in our part of our conversation with each other as to, okay, these are the things that we like. This is important, what we're going to raise right now. So again, apologies that all I can do is speak in English.
As we wait for other questions along the same lines, let me give 2 quick examples. You mentioned there's a lot of Latino leaders. So for example, so Alice Valdez can't apply. Why? Because she's on the judge committee. We're not going to apply because we're helping with this, with the whole process and system as well. The other thing I'm going to add too, we're traumatized. I'll speak as a writer. There have been writing competitions where they're like, hey, it's this amount of money for the writers. And then all the applications come and say, we picked nobody because of everything you just mentioned, because they had all this stuff in mind. Like you're saying, that's not the case this time. When everybody applies, we'll take a look at it and form this composite picture and keep building and keep growing from it. So these are all great questions, but I also like that it reveals the thought behind this, and we'll keep building on it for next year as well. And I hope around the country, other cities will adopt some of these tactics and implement.
I think that that's actually part of the thing, is that why we're trying to be transparent about this process, why we're trying to be transparent and bringing other community members into this. That is part of how we help to shift philanthropy, to shift the ways that resources can be allocated in the future. And when they say in the future that community, there's too many conflicts of interest, that people don't understand and all of that, we have examples that you can fund nonprofit organizations and artist collective. You can fund individual artists. You can fund across multiple communities, and everybody come together in a way in order to make that happen. It is part of our experiment. It's part of our experiment to demonstrate all the things that we said that we couldn't do. Let's see if we can, what can we do? And hopefully, again, continue to learn and do better. We're not perfect. This whole process is not going to be perfect, but it is a lot better than a lot of things. At least that's, I think all of us believe in.
What happened in the past?
Yeah, what happened in that?
It's cool.
So I think that's very helpful because it does indicate some kind of profile. You're looking for someone that will help them make that case to continue this style of funding. And we've all been traumatized, you're right, Tony. You know, many of us have had to do our art and our political art specifically for and we've never gotten funded to do political work either, right? So that's just like, don't even try if you're doing political work. And I just want to ask, you know, is it okay to name that you're doing political work, that your impact is political, you know, changing minds, culture, and you know, is it true that it is helpful, you know, to think of this as an applicant in a way that I'm trying to change the entire culture of how art is supporting all of us collectively, right? And we've all had to work on our friends' art projects at times, and support each other in that way, right? Go to each other's shows, for example. We even buy each other's art. We attend the shows, whatever, all that kind of stuff. But is that helpful? And will we be punished for for naming that, you know, much of our work and impact is political?
The word political.
So I guess just to repeat for what I'm hearing from your question is that part of your work is political, or and there has been histories or opportunities where you felt the need to hide the politics and to hide different parts of you as an artist in this process, and present this. From my standpoint, I will speak personally in this aspect, and how I will encourage our other readers. This is an opportunity for you to tell your story completely. You will not be punished if it is political. You might not get an award if you say your work is political and you actually aren't doing anything political, or you actually haven't done anything for the community. You say it's political, but if all you see, if it's only hanging in your bedroom, that's not political, right? So it has, say it's political and show that it actually is, demonstrate how that actually, how people and the community see that. And again, that's where some of these letters of support are really important. How is that impact important? How has the community seen that, not just as political, but as affirming, as necessary? Those are great parts of this. But I don't think that we are going to shy away from you saying that it's political. I don't think that like in the instructions to the readers, it's not about our aesthetics. It's not about what we like. It's about, are you actually doing the things that you say you're doing? And does the community see you doing the things that you say you're doing? And that's actually a big part where like, you can say you do all these things, but if you don't have anybody else to tell you, say that you can, to vouch for you, you ain't doing any of that. That's what I mean, so that's actually the part of this, is part of this, like the support system, part of these things. You all have a network of support. You all deserve to ask for that support. Ask for the support. All of you all deserve to step up for other people. Advocate for each other in this moment. Those are the things in which that advocacy, that relationship, those things, that's more important than us and an award. That's you all showing up for ourselves. You all of us showing up for ourselves in order to make this happen. So those are some of the things that I hope will actually happen. Show up how you need to show up, how you want to fully show up in this application. And I will say, we do not condone we can't be violence. And we are very clear around how the monies cannot go to more discriminatory practices, because we are about equity, we are about support. So those are some of the things where there are some limits as to what that is. So you need to understand of how that shows up, but there's also some aspects of that's kind of our legal thing on our side. Monica?
I have a quick question. For the images, so there's a lot of events and things that people have created. Would it be appropriate to put like a collage of images from the events, or a flyer, collage of flyers for the events that you created or participated or were part of, or how would that look?
So the question is, can, in terms of work samples, in terms of all this, can you create a collage or you can present the flyers? Yes, you can, all of the above. I think part of the question is to understand what best conveys your work and the intent of your work. I would say that a video of something happening is a lot more, like demonstrates to a reader more than what just a flyer does. But if the flyer shows all these multiple events and different places, and that's part of your story, then great. We're not going to tell you what exactly right. I will also say that we actually have we had a session on work samples earlier, and there's a video and there's some answers on some of that. When we're asking for the videos, I would suggest not doing the quick cut promotional videos, like the things that all I can see is 5 seconds, and those of us who can't see a lot, I'll just get a headache. We would rather you see something like, something that's a little bit more sustained, 20 to 30 seconds of a dance movement, 20 to 30 seconds of a song or something, or plus that. The more that you do that kind of the quick cuts, as a reader, as a reviewer, I start asking questions. I'm like, is this actually real? Or are you just a really good editor? Are you a good artist or are you a good editor? Those are really different things. So show the work in order, this is your art, and you should be proud of all of the things that happen. And that's why, and I know that's not an exact answer, but it's hopefully you can present what you're proud of and how we can actually read that aspect.
It's funny, I think we're describing some of the traumas that we're always hiding. Well, I'll speak for myself. Whenever I'm applying, I'm always hiding, what I do, what I really create, what I really want to do. I'm like, I don't think they want to know that. This is a different time where it's like, no, we want everything else that, you're so proud of, but we've had to hide. Let's document it, and share that. So, these are very powerful questions, and I hope that we can internalize it.
Another question. Does artist talks count as a mentorship or leadership when you are invited to be artist in a college, a university, that count as a community?
If you do one artist talk in a decade, no.
Okay.
If that's something that you do constantly as something, as a means for you, as part of your work, sure. And those are the things where the parts where I'm gonna say is, the things that you do often, the things that you do are important to your work, you can include that, and that's the one-off events, the one-off opportunities, those aren't necessarily, that's harder for me to, as a reader, as a reviewer, to understand, is that really part of what your story is? Or is that just because you had an opportunity? We have all chased the money. We've all done anything just because somebody gave us this opportunity. That's great. That's not your work. That's not the art.
It's something that we don't get paid, but we do it as a support. Like a visual artist does this as a routine. It's something that we constantly do, and it's something that we are constantly somos como invitados a compartir nuestras historias, porque nuestras historias inspiran. Entonces, o sea, no es solamente artists talk about my work, it's artists talk about my history as an artist, as an immigrant, how I became what I am today, what I did.
Absolutely.
What I am.
That's mentorship. That's history. That's documented. Like those are service points that really show not only it's not about you, it's about what you are helping to make happen and those conversations. And the fact that you get invited by multiple people in order to do that might also demonstrate why you have value and why that's important and why that needs to be recognized. So that's the part where the difference to me is that if it's an intent, like if this is something that you do it and it is part of why you continue to do the work, and that is all the work, part of your work, and not just about the object, name that, share that with us.
However you feel most comfortable, English or Spanish.
So, did you just say that if we get paid for our community service, it's not really community service?
No, let's separate that aspect. So if your community service is your job, that's a little different. So that's one of the things where we just but you also if my art is if I'm an art educator and that all the thing is that I get paid as a salary and I don't do any other thing outside of that, that's a question. And that'll be a question that the applicants and the readers will need to deal with. Why am I going to tell you you can't get paid? We're trying to pay you. That's part of the whole thing. But it can't just be about you getting paid. It has to be about why are you doing this service? If you're doing the service because it is just to get paid, I'm not sure that's really service. But you can tell me. That's a question that we're going to have to find out, and that's a question that you're going to have to put in your narrative. And we will read, we will see, we will discuss. But those are some of the things where there's no specific rule about that part. But it is one of the things, like, how do you show up? And how do you actually, and how can the community support you? If you get paid to do all this great work, that's amazing. That's what we want. We want people to get paid to do all this work. But if that's all your job, I'm not sure how that fits in particularly. So those are like some of the things where there is no hard and fast rule, and it'll be something that we're going to have a discussion about as you present it to us.
I chose my work because of this community work.
That's, yeah. And I think this is actually one of those applications where you can actually say that and demonstrate, and that community work is a place where it's not just about the product that you put out there. I know I'm talking a lot, so I'm sorry.
We still have, we got about 7 more minutes that we can take a couple more questions or maybe do some one-on-one. More questions? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sí, bien simple la pregunta. La mejor es tonta, pero básica. No puedo encontrar la aplicación. ¿Dónde bajo la aplicación?
Oh, let's walk through finding the application online. Yeah.
Oh, it's very quickly, if
Yeah, and
go
if you
to-
can, yeah, walk through it so we can also have it on the podcast and the radio show.
If you go to
Yeah, give out the website.
Houston BANF, BANF.org. Okay, then you are in the main landing page. Go there and then you'll see Artist Awards. Click on that and then you'll see more information or apply. Click apply here and then it would take you to another site that it's ban.submittable.com. And that's the whole application. You're going to have to log in and create an account so you can go back and if you don't finish at the same time.
If you when you go to houstonbanff.org/2023 artist apply, there will be the guidelines in Spanish, worksheet in Spanish. And it's down a little bit lower in like on that
The
page.
base for resources.
So that you have the resources. They will also see that support.houstonbanf.org has almost every question that we've been asked with an answer. Unfortunately, most of those answers are in English, but hopefully, like, you know, in that aspect, there are some answers that are Spanish because that there was from these meetings. But hopefully there is a lot of information there for you to then be able to get more questions. And then you can then put in a support ticket as a question. Also on the website, we have 15-minute one-on-one sessions with our community consultants. You can sign up for a one-on-one session with, like, basically come with a specific question and our community consultants will try to help you.
They sign up online for that?
They sign up online for that. If you go to our website, and I don't have the exact thing, and if you need Spanish language, be specific there. We give some specific times that we have Spanish speakers who can do all of that, and who can actually speak to you easily in that aspect instead of what I do.
How many applications do y'all have in so far?
That's a good question. Does it matter? Is yours in, Brian? So therefore, if yours isn't in, does it matter how many we have? No. I'm like, get your applications in.
I said before, we're more than comfort zone. We're in the session.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess I have to say in my mind, if there are 30,000 people apply for 35, really, it would be more of the same. Yeah, it's a fairness.
No. This is an important thing for the audience, is that there's a question about, or there's also a known fear of, like, you've applied to other grants and there's a lot of other applications and you're in competition with all the applicants, and we only are awarding 25. We recognize that it is a competitive process. $20,000 we think is important and worthy of a competitive process. But you submitting your application, there are other ways in which we are hoping to support all the applicants, and not just by the $20,000 awards. It is by looking at the data, demonstrating these other aspects, having the readers actually see all the work that's out there, actually being able to then say to Houston Endowment, like Brown, Cullen, the Houston Arts Alliance, we have so much information that they can also benefit from, or that can inform their work. You will also be part of our ongoing relationship with the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund. So therefore, other opportunities that we have, whether they're direct funds opportunities, or just getting together, or here's another fund for somebody else's, we will try to share as much of that information with you as possible. We hope this is a start of a relationship. We hope it's a start of a conversation. Each one of the people who have been doing this is committed to our community. It's committed to supporting and uplifting other artists. That's part of what we're trying to do. And that's hopefully you will understand that in this process, you will be seen, you'll be heard. You might not be validated to $20,000, but you will be seen and you'll be heard in this process. So we will continue to learn and we will continue to figure out opportunities, and hopefully there might be other ways that you will benefit from this process other than just the awards.
If I can add two facets to that. One, even if it's, so in the 2 years, we're going to give away $1 million. If we gave $5 million away, it would not change what you talked about earlier. It would just not. That's all important. What's more important long-term is us working together. And I think I would add quantifying community cultural capital, us realizing we're artists and moving forward. The other thing I'm going to add too is that I'll bet you in this room, when you all apply, I'll bet we get, this is going to be more Latinos applying than all the other, and believe me or not, we've looked at the data for the formal organizations that give out grants. We think 20,000 people apply that are Latinos. You'd be surprised. It barely reaches triple digits, barely. So then what's going to happen in the future is we can say to these other organizations, you only had 20 Latinos apply. It's not the community. You're causing this trauma. Here's how you must change to increase it. So exactly like you're saying, it's building up over time.
Here's how we invite you to change. There's a difference there, Tony.
Look, I thought we could be political. No, just
you can be political. No. But yeah,
Right.
exactly. I mean, the thing is, the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund is a 5-year initiative. We will be here. We've been here. We will be here for 4 more years. You all will be here much longer than 5 years. Our hope. You working together closer, more directly with other resources, that's so much more important than what, I'm sorry, that is equally as important as us giving us money. And it was also the part of the proof of Mexican immigrants, Central American, South American, all can work together and be part of Houston. And Houston is not just Houston Latinos is not just Mexican, it's not just Chicano. It is the complexity of all of that aspect. It is not just Asian or Filipino. It is all of these complexities. We are helping to prevent and provide that to our funders, to the people. And that's the nuance that we hope to uplift, because I'm tired of always, anyway, that's about me.
I want to add that this is an opportunity for you to learn about yourself. So you are assessing what you have been doing, and you are assessing it with a different lens, because you are looking at your work of how your work impacts your community, which you might not have done before. Even if you are a theater or you are looking at who comes to you, but have you ever thought, well, how does my theater influence the neighborhood I'm in? So you are, by applying, it's never fun to apply, I have to agree. You apply, you write, you do that, you put your photos together, whatever, you are learning about yourself. And I think all of these processes are never a waste of time. And so that's what I think. And then to make it short, what he said, but really short, you are actually, just by applying and not receiving the money, you are helping your community.
That's a great point. Should we end it on that note and then check? Thank you so much for coming. We'll be hanging out for a little bit.